I think I'd like to just close it out and talk basically about the matching logic next time
Okay.
and how it knows when the game is over, and then give a quick review of the framework and how this got put into the framework. It's quite simple. There's not a lot of changes to make to drop this into the composer framework that I set up, which is why I set these up as simple modules where you just pass in a few arguments. And I would propose that in the future that maybe we approach these game development things a little differently and maybe break these down into discussions of mechanics instead of entire games.
Gotcha.
So, I mean,
So like maybe in this example, we would do like you were talking about just a moment ago, the matching logic. Just look at that part of
yeah.
it.
So, for example, if we had taken this game and said we're not going to look at the whole game, we're going to take the top three interesting things. How do I make a card flip? How do I lay out a grid? And then how do I put together the logic where I know that I've matched the cards and then the game is over, I've won or lost? Beyond that, it starts to become sort of like a personal design methodology. And my way may not be other people's way. And we've done two of these games now that have similar layouts. Also, there is a Corona blog a couple weeks ago where who was it? Rob, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
always get the articles. I wasn't sure if it was Brent or Rob. They put together a sample game with all the different bits and pieces, the whole game, and so people could use that as their template for putting together a game. I think it would be more interesting for me and probably for folks on the panel to break down individual game mechanics, and that way I can say something about it, and other people here can go, "Hey, no, that's not the way I do it," or "This is my twist on that."
Yeah, maybe we could do that where we're like you said, we're addressing just the mechanic of it, and then as people want to on the panel, they could come with their own solution. So
Mm-hmm.
just like Jason was saying, well, I've done it this way. Be almost like a panel show and tell, where we could all
Yeah.
kind of throw in on it. That would be kind of interesting.
I mean, I'd still be happy to do, and I'm throwing this out there talking to you, Charles, and I'm talking to the panel,
Yeah.
and I'm talking to the listeners from today's show who might want to give us feedback on this. I'm more than happy to do fully functional game samples like this, but to me, it just gets kind of, I like to focus on the interesting mechanics and leave the rest up to people as homework in a sense.
Yeah. Well, we have done the endless runner, and then what was before that? Was there something else before that?
No, Endless Runner was our first
Okay, it
real.
was our first one. Okay, so but we had a fairly in depth discussion about how. Oh, and prior to that, here's where I was going. Prior to that, we've done some hangouts where we've talked about what you're calling the framed version. The adding composer scenes so that you have your
Right.
splash screen and your game over screen and all that kind of stuff like that. We've done conversations around that. So uh, that becomes repetitive. Like, okay, here's the game, and then here's the splash screen, and then here's the exit screen, and it's kind of like, well, once you've done that a few times, you can kind of figure out how to bolt that on. So we've kind of covered that. So what I think most people get stuck on is the nuts and bolts of it. The mechanic. So that would
I just think it's more fun to talk about the mechanics.
yeah.
So,
Does
and I
anybody
think Sergey does too.
does anybody have anything
I
to
think
throw in?
ultimately,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
well, I was going to say, I think ultimately it's probably a better tool too for people who are learning, rather than, here's how to do this thing and it's going to look exactly like this. It's more, here's how to do this and here's how to do this, and then you can throw that together, use your own imagination in how you implement that. Um,
Piece it together and learn from your own mistakes.
Well, it was just like that we were talking about just a moment ago. You've got the loop within a loop. That piece of code.
Hmm.
Well, it's part of the mechanic for creating. It's part of a piece of code for the mechanic for the grid pattern or whatever for this matching game. But that has a reusable element all by itself. So by examining those snippets, those pieces, that's something where you don't need the whole game. You just need that snippet. You just need to understand that concept. So anyway,
Yep.
Sergey, you got anything to add? Anybody? No, he's got nothing to add.
I always pick on Sergey. I try to get Sergey to come in and say something.
Your code works.
Yeah, it
Whatever
works.
works.
He said it works. Your code works. Yeah.
Okay.
Sergey never has a problem saying anything, so I never worry about him. But I just want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to say. Yeah. Hey, before we end, because we're a little early on the show here today, let's talk about Apple Watch. Just because I have one, and and I'm dying to share my.
There was this great webcomic on Twitter. I saw it the other day. It said, "How do you know if people bought Apple Watch? You don't know. They tell you."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't have to wait for them. You do not have to wait for them to tell you. Well, here's.
Which one did you get, Charles?
I got the Sport. I got the least expensive one, I guess you could say. Well, no, actually, I didn't get the least expensive one. I got the 42 millimeter Apple Watch Sport, which is about $50 more than the cheapest one. The cheapest one was the 38 millimeter, which, on a device this size, there's a footprint difference. And
the battery lasts a little longer on the 42.
And the battery lasts a little longer on the 42. That's very good. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. And I want to say that battery life is great. I mean, I have no problems with battery life. I'll take it off the charger around 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and then I don't go to bed until maybe midnight, 1 o'clock, and the thing still has 50% charge. Now I don't get like, I try to limit the amount of text messages I get or mail messages I get. I've already done the legwork to try to cull the number of notifications that I get from my phone. And then those get mirrored onto your Apple Watch. So I've already made sure that I'm not continually pinging the Apple Watch with notifications and stuff. So, but overall, 50% is good. I feel like.
Is this where you tell us that Corona's going to have a viewer for the watch kit?
I don't
think so.
That's been the number one question, and I haven't heard any official conversations, but I can't imagine that it wouldn't.
I mean, essentially, that's what scenes do. Is they're mock-ups of view controllers. So
yeah,
you have to use the special.
I don't think we will be using Corona on Apple Watch, at least on this generation, because I've seen a video from App Spy playing all the games that are currently existing on the Apple Watch, and they all pretty much suck because of the performance, because of everything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I agree there. So I was more thinking from the business side of things, like some kind of. Which is what I was going to ask earlier. When you were asking other things we could do for segments, we focus a lot on games because Corona's known for the games. But
even for the UI, I don't think it will be possible to achieve 60 FPS for your scrolling on if you are not using native components. Maybe. I'm not sure here.
I'm talking more like you have an app that possibly does, it's got tab control. It's not a game at all. It's more of a business directory type of thing with information, and you want to push that information in a message format over to the watch. You know what I mean? Right now it'll go over there. Well, it'll go over there now, but not the same way.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because I'm looking at a quote from the Apple Watch Human Interface Guidelines here, and it says a WatchKit app complements its containing iOS app. It does not replace it. If you measure interactions with your iOS app in minutes, you can expect interactions with your WatchKit app to be measured in seconds. So keep interactions brief and interfaces simple. So, they're really, like we were talking about at the top of the show here, it's a very personalized device. And there are times when I'm like, when you look at it, it comes on. And when you put your arm down or whatever, it goes off, right? So when you look at it, there's times that if you look at it too long, it'll go away because it's registered that you're probably beyond the glance. You're probably you've already seen that piece of information, which doesn't lend itself to things like if you're trying to view Flipbook or Flipboard or any of those other it'll time out and it just goes away and you're like, oh, and you have to push the button to make it come back. So it's very
like right now, if
brief.
I read it right, your apps that do push notifications already are going to get normal pushes to the actual watch.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to make them look different, like what Twitter did, what Facebook did, or Facebook's supposed to do, you would get a different looking thing on your actual watch rather than the generic you'd actually get a logo and some kind of different response you can talk back to the app with. And that's kind of where I was going with it. There's some apps that I have out there that are more in line with the business wants to know this, and it's part of almost like how ESPN does the push notification, and then there's it shows up somewhere else. Their push notification for the watch is customized for the watch so that it complements the app, and it's just another view controller. It's a smaller one, obviously, but something like that. I would never try to make a game on that. I don't think they'd ever approve it.